Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach, and Kurt Eichenwald is is threatening to sue me.
Were you trying to get crazy with this, eh? Don't you know I'm loco?
Insane. You hear me? I'm not insane! This is not reality, not reality, not reality. This is reality. You know? Not reality, not reality. Relax, buddy. You're awake now.
And it was a link to hardcore Japanese cartoon pornography. It exists.
Konnichiwa, Oni-sons, and welcome back to Part 2, the conclusion to the Kurt Eichenwald experience. Within Part 1, we covered some of the earlier controversies within Kurt's journalism career, namely his coverage of Justin Berry, a young man who found himself at the center of a child pornography ring. We took a look at some of the allegations and doubts that his contemporaries and peers at the time had when it came to how he went about pursuing the story. And those misgivings journalists felt at the time still persist even till today. Just as recently as last year, WikiLeaks Task Force tweeted this out. Reporter Kurt Eichenwald was an administrator of a child porn site, claims he was only posing as an online predator. 7,000 retweets. A story that people were still very much interested in, even 12 years down the road. We touched on Kurt's disastrous appearance on Tucker Carlson, where he informed the host of the Fox News show that he had a secret message from the CIA just for him. We looked at the assault by gifting that Kurt just barely survived while his wife tweeted out about his current medical condition. And finally, we finished off with Kurt's appreciation for Eastern animated pornography and his love of sharing that with his thousands upon thousands of Twitter followers. And I suppose that's really as good a segue as any to take a look at the bane of Kurt's life, his social media account and his interactions with other people. Because Kurt's behavior hasn't mellowed out or leveled off. If anything, it's escalated. And escalated repeatedly within a short period of time through his use of Twitter and other social media platforms. And one perfect example of just that would be when Kurt found himself in the middle of a fight between somebody within the comic book industry and somebody outside of it.
I don't take these comic book things all that serious. And if you do, like, get a life. Get a life!
Our journey begins back in mid-February when @RebelWoman Michelle Perez tweeted this out. Richard C. Meyer, aka the Diversity in Comics Guy, he did a 30-minute video about a comic book circular that featured an article of mine. He's a multiple divorcee piece of shit. He's a war veteran, so of course he's a crypto-fascist. Unfortunately, an IED didn't blow him up. Now that tweet, one among many, was part of an ongoing internet feud dubbed Comicsgate. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with it and looking for the basic gestalt or a hard and fast summary, Comicsgate is simply a dispute between those that enjoy a medium of entertainment and those within it who are seeking to change the direction the industry is going in, making it more progressive or politically correct, and focusing on issues of social justice rather than entertaining the customer who's paying money for the product. This is a trend we've seen take place over the last decade in multiple different forms of media, be it television or movies or video games, and Comicsgate itself focuses on the comics book industry. Now, Richard C. Myers, the diversity in comics guy, the multiple divorcee piece of shit war veteran, as Michelle puts it, is somebody that's against this, that doesn't like this idea of shoehorning in progressive storylines within already existing franchises, or in trying to dictate to the audience what they should enjoy, rather than what they actually do enjoy. Michelle Perez, on the other hand, is a transsexual communist furry. Guess which side of this argument they're on? Within a few days of that tweet going up, Kurt stumbled across it. The most horrible person on Twitter today is @RebelWoman, a comic book writer with Image Comics, who wished an Afghan vet was killed by an IED, and celebrated the deaths of a number of GOP and religious figures. I don't care if you don't like people's politics. This is obscene. So I condemned a comic writer for Image Comics for wishing an Afghan vet had died, and celebrating conservative deaths. Then I got bombarded with outrage from comic book industry insiders. When did comics become evil political? And when did lunatics take over? I missed this event. Well, it seems that Richard and Kurt both agree upon this. They both see the infiltration of an entertainment medium by those with a political agenda as a bad thing. So I'm sure they're going to be the best of friends going forward.
So, real brief thing on Kurt Eichenwald. So you can see him right here on the screen. He's worked for a lot of big, Vanity Fair, MSNBC, New York Times. He's also very, very controversial and a real weirdo. So this is where the thesis of this comes in. I am not saying, Yahoo, Kurt Eichenwald's on my side. It's literally that there is a spectrum. And at one end is, me and a bunch of normies. At the other end is all the SJW comic book pros. And close to them, but between the normies and the extremists, are guys like this. Kurt Eichenwald is a grimy guy. I would not leave any of my kids around him for a split second. I don't know if he's done anything actionable, but there's been little, and you can Google it, what he's kind of been like tied to stuff. It gets really grimy. I don't know, if he was like your cousin, you'd probably invite him to the picnic, but you'd keep an eye on him.
Or not, or potentially not. But Kurt, being that meticulous, detail-oriented, level-headed journalist we know, surely he took this well. Please let Diversity in Comics know to check his email. I defended him yesterday, and still do. Calling for the death of someone is wrong. However, today I am perfectly happy to start wrecking him if he ignores what I wrote to him. So all you loons, let him know. And what exactly was the reckoning that Kurt was going to visit upon Richard? Beginning of the letter that Kurt Eichenwald just sent me. Read, respond, or I'm suing you. Richard, imagine for a minute that while in Afghanistan you saw a group of jihadists drowning children. Imagine that you run in and rescue them, resulting in children being saved and the jihadists captured. Then imagine some left-wing jerks change the story into you were drowning the children. Then imagine that a group of conservative jerks conclude that that's a convenient story against you, and say not only that you were drowning children, but that you went to jail for it. I saved children. Hundreds of them. I got pedophiles locked up, testified before Congress about it. Kids I saved testified about my rescue, and changed laws. Then left-wing pro-pedophile lunatics, yes, they exist, start a campaign of disinformation about what really happened. Journalists, incapable of reading documents and sworn testimony, or interviewing witnesses, pick up a story and tell the lunatic version without contacting me. Finally, 2 journalists tell the full story, but then right-wingers decided I was the enemy, took the left-wing lies, added to them, and spewed them out. You added a little more to the lies last night. You, unknowingly working with pedophiles and left-wing freaks, attacked a guy who saved kids, and spun a series of lies about my career. You pulled garbage off the internet and pretended it was true. It would be as if I searched the internet, saw people calling you a Nazi, then wrote, not only is he a Nazi, but well, let's just say they don't want to leave any Jews nearby him if you want them to survive. So you're going to read this. You are going to correct the record with a new video that talks about how you were suckered into it by left-wing garbage used against you. Or I am going to finally stop the lies by using you as the end point by suing you. Now, I don't believe it has to get to that. You're a veteran. You have honor. You would, if you carry the principles you should, want to fix what you did. But if you want to push the line that a kid saver is a kid diddler, I have no problem using you as the declaration that this stops here. So you are going to do another video apologizing to me. You are going to say that I sent you proof of what really happened and that you fell for the left-wing garbage. And you are not going to mention the litigation threat, but rather present this as, he contacted me, he showed me the record, and I owe him an apology. Unlike the SJWs, you're going to admit you were wrong. And rather than doubling down, you're going to own up to it. Why am I bothering? Because this ends now. Because your deception to 50,000 people of the most noble thing my family ever did is somehow sordid and evil finally was the last straw. And because I believe military guys have integrity, unlike many, many journalists, I think you will care more about being right than about disclosing error. So I am loading you up with everything to show you the falsehood. Just taking down the video is not acceptable. If you tell the truth, I will have a video I can link to you showing you the falsity. If not, I can take you to court and prove it. Your choice. Unlike most of the bots and lunatics who spew this garbage, I know where you are. So I can take you to court and bring this to an end that way. Show integrity. Admit that condemning the guy who saved the drowning kids as a kid drowner based on internet bullshit is pure SJW type crap. Don't double down. So respond to this. Or go back to war. This time, with me. Now in that email from Kurt Eichenwald, aka the big boss from Zanzibar land, I think he was trying to impress Richard with his best Liam Neeson impersonation from the movie Taken.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you are looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
I know where you are. I'm going to find you, and we are going to go to war. Internet war. But it's not like Kurt Eichenwald became completely unhinged and began sending numerous emails like some drunken ex-girlfriend that just can't get the hint that you don't want to see her anymore. Oh, wait a minute. No, he did exactly that. He did exactly that. But our little Kurt, he's not one to be deterred so easily. You may ignore his spamming your inbox like he's a Nigerian prince trying to get gold out of the US from an uncle's account that's been long forgotten. Well, he'll just turn around and use a new tactic. It's amazing how brave people are on the internet, but who shrivel into little piles of pink dust when they are asked to show some sense of integrity by having direct conversation. Kurt, he didn't ask to talk to you, ever. He's never even mentioned your name before. You bulldozed your way in and insisted you had the right to his time and energy because you defended him, and then threatened him when he didn't give in to you. No means no. Follow me. Well now, is Ethan a brave man? Will he throw himself into the lion's den and open up those DM messages to Kurt? Ethan was kind enough to share their conversation with me. A bizarre, meandering conversation that seemed to go on for an eternity. I've taken a few highlights to give you the basic idea of how this conversation went down between the two of them. Now call me. Say so publicly. Lawsuit threat off the table. I'm saying it to you. I'm not making any public announcement until someone calls me, and I get to have this conversation. Then you call Richard. Once we have made clear what reality is, I will announce. We don't negotiate with terrorists. You want to talk, you come as a friend. Then you call me. That's all I want. You call me, you talk to Richard, and I will say this is over. But you need to post that you were angry with the lawsuit threat, and it's off the table. I don't know why if someone says, pass the potatoes or I'll sue you, they don't just freaking pass the potatoes. He has in writing that there is no lawsuit threat if he contacts me. I have now amended that there is no lawsuit threat if you call me, and then you call him. Sorry, Kurt. Okay, then the threat remains, and it looks like it is my only alternative. Pass the potatoes or I'll sue the fuck out of you, lad. So if you've been following along at home, Kurt notices that a comic book industry insider is taking shots at a critic outside the comic book industry, decides to go in and defend him. That individual happened to read multiple articles about who Kurt Eichenwald is and isn't necessarily the most thrilled to have him on his side. Kurt doesn't take too kindly to that and responds with way too many emails saying he's going to sue the shit out of the guy if he doesn't create a new video and sing his praises to his audience. That YouTuber basically tells Kurt to go fuck himself. Kurt then gets a hold of somebody the YouTuber knows and demands that he calls him. And if he just will get on the phone and talk to Kurt, there won't be a lawsuit. But much like the YouTuber, his friend decides to say, maybe you should go fuck yourself instead. And Kurt doesn't take that so well. But it's not like Kurt Eichenwald really has a reputation for not overreacting. He likes to push the boundaries. He goes from being a reporter and into the sphere of an activist. Don't bring a knife to a bazooka fight. Journalist posts Oregon lawmakers' personal info online. Eichenwald went a step further on Friday, posting social security number, in addition to his phone number and home address for Eichenwald's 454,000 Twitter followers and countless others to see. Eichenwald quickly deleted the information, saying he'd made his point. Eichenwald did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Eichenwald wrote to Post that it took me 25 seconds to get all the information about you, your wife, your son, tell him happy 25th, your neighbors, etc. Don't bring a knife to a bazooka fight. Now that I have demonstrated to Bill Post Oregon, I can get his home address, his personal phone number, and his social security number. I have deleted. However, Bill, one more time you take info submitted to legislature to dox people for disagreeing with you, it all goes back up. Apparently that little blue checkmark is just like Captain America's shield, protecting Kurt from any backlash over posting social security numbers on Twitter. I'm fairly certain anybody without a blue checkmark that did that would be deplatformed by Jack instantly. But it is interesting to see this coming from Kurt Eichenwald, somebody who repeatedly says that his family is targeted, that his children and wife face all sorts of terrible dangers from people that come after him, to then turn around and post the information of a lawmaker's family, to target his wife, his children, and his neighbors, simply to try to make a point, to go even farther than most people would go by posting social security numbers and then deleting them and bragging that if this guy steps out of line, he's going to hit him again. But could Kurt possibly one-up himself? I mean, it's only been about a week or two. What else is left for him to outdo himself? Well, I suppose there is going after the survivor of a school shooting, but surely Kurt wouldn't be that suicidal. Hopefully the Laura Ingraham blow-up will teach conservatives you are not debating gun control when you insult survivors of a mass slaughter for advocating laws you don't agree with. You are just being infantile bullies. Want to debate policy? Great. Want to insult kids? Shut up. But he won't debate. Just ask Kyle, who offered. As I said, Kyle quickly made clear that his entire shtick is insults. I invited conservatives to a debate without invective, bringing exactly what you're told not to bring, and expecting to get accepted is how to get ignored. Wait, but Kurt, you literally just insulted a survivor. See how this game works? See, you went for a little while and I thought, this guy sounds reasonable. Let me look at Kyle again, but then, boom, back to the typical nonsense. If Kyle can demonstrate he can debate beyond slinging insults and conspiracy theories consistently, I will consider. Kyle, you continue to disappoint. Trafficking in fantasies, fine. Your followers are infantile. Your only form of debate is insult. And you wonder why I have no respect for you. Well, that's a bit strange. How could Kurt instantly go from condemning Laura Ingraham to doing exactly what he was condemning her for? I owe an apology to Kyle. I have no idea how many times I have commented to him. There is a high school kid who has a podcast who keeps challenging me to debates with insults. I mixed up their names. Please ignore every tweet I've sent. They were written for someone else. Last on this convo involving kid I mixed up with Kyle, they became mixed up because this kid's followers swarmed me, belittling my health, insulting me endlessly. I blocked many. Kyle is not responsible, but his followers did the same thing, which led to the confusion. I did not mix you up because his name was Kyle. I mixed you up because your followers suddenly attacked my feed with your tweet insulting me. It was the same thing that happened with the other kid, with the same vicious attacks on my disability. So I thought you were him.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Proactive, been using for months and love your product. Don't love your support of MSNBC's Kurt Eichenwald. We are aware of this incident and have pulled our ads from the network as a result. We are working diligently. For those like Ben Shapiro who are taking my entire situation with Kyle to push a lie, I thought he was someone else. Stop going after MSNBC. My contributor contact with them expired more than a month ago. Not with them. Need to edit my profile. Good old Kurt Eichenwald. Even when he's not employed with you, he somehow finds a way to get your advertisers pulled. That is impressive. He can destroy a business just by people thinking he's associated with them. With all these constant shitstorms and fuck-ups on the part of Kurt, you have to wonder, where can he go from here? What other mountain is left to climb after the disasters and catastrophes that he has left in his own wake? When he's not busy destroying his own reputation as a journalist, he's making sure those who were former associates of him are losing business. Well, while I'm not able to exactly foresee the future, I can bring a little theory into play on what might be happening and where this might end up going. But to do that, I'm going to need to break out a graph. Now, on the horizontal, we have time. And on the vertical, we have insanity. And there's our little Kurt. That's from around, let's say, 2005-ish. That would be back during his Justin Berry article and then all the fallout from that. So, it's a roughly a 2-year period, but that's our starting point. And then we've got a gap, about 10 years, let's say a decade. Now, I'm sure that knowing Kurt did some really retarded shit in that time frame, but I'm just unaware of it. So I call this the dark ages of Kurt. I don't know what happened in there. I can't even speculate on it. It's a missing gap. But after we move past that dark ages period, we start to see a lot of activity take place in a very short amount of time. The hentai incident, threatening to sue YouTubers, doxing lawmakers, going after school shooter survivors, until finally we reach the point where we are right now with the current day Kurt. Now, if you were to draw a little line, if you were to connect all of these points, from our starting position in 2005 down into the dead unknown period of the Dark Ages, all the way up into the current year, you get a nice little J curve showing up. And that's what I like to call the Eichenwald J curve. You'll notice that as time goes on, the incidence of insanity increase exponentially. And this is where we are right now. I like to call this the danger zone, because you don't want to fly anywhere near it. But hey, what do I know? I'm just some lunatic alt-writer launching a mega attack against poor innocent Kurt. Apparently he's under the impression that YouTube videos and Twitter are like Pokemon battles. Then again, it was super effective. So what's next for Kurt? Where does he go from here? Well, judging from the information we can glean from the J-curve, it's pretty easy to speculate that sometime in the next, I don't know, day to a week, he's going to do something even stupider than what he's done before. You can see that each incident of him embarrassing himself or sullying his own reputation begins to increase in frequency as time goes on. What used to take a year or a month or a week is now a day or an hour. He's a real-life version of the Flash if the Flash was a giant fuck-up that kept tripping over his own 2 feet. But I suppose we're going to have to wait for him to leave hibernation before we can be sure about this. And knowing Kurt, he can't stay away from social media for too long. After all, he's going to have a lot of free time on his hands not working for Newsweek or MSNBC or really anybody else. I just can't understand why nobody wants to hire this amazing reporter.